No choice this time, you have to. Mr Chair, the Minister of Revenue stood up, or at least I think he stood up, and cried a series of crocodile tears for the plumbers and the carpenters and the small business people who are sitting around doing their tax returns, doing the right thing. And he stands there and says that to this House at the same time that he sits on his chuff in his office and fails to do anything about closing the loopholes around tax avoidance and tax evasion in this country. And it's all very well to praise the efforts of the hard-working staff of the Inland Revenue Department, but it's in the mirror that the Minister should be looking when it comes to what is going wrong in the tax system of New Zealand. And haven't we had a window to the soul of the National Party in the last 2 weeks when it comes to what's been happening with the Panama Papers? John Key's very first reaction was to leap to the defence of his old mates, the mega-rich around the world who hide their money. That was the first people John Key thought of. He didn't think of the taxpayers of New Zealand who work hard and pay their fair share. He didn't think of the taxpayers of countries around the world who work hard and pay their fair share. He leapt to the defence of the greedy. He leapt to the defence of the people who make it their mission not to do the right thing. That's who John Key's on the side of. The mega-rich, the people at the very top, not the middle New Zealanders working hard every day who do pay their fair share. That's what we've seen from the National Party over the last couple of weeks. And Bill English decides to add to it. He says that working people in New Zealand are pretty damn hopeless. We're hearing from the National Party what they really think. Bill English when he's talking to his mates and Federated Farmers, and John Key when his first reaction is to defend the people who rip off the system. You know, the National Party's very quick to get into people who might be bludging somewhere, they say, if it's in the welfare system. Well, Simon Bridges, what about the bludgers at the top? What about the people at the top who go out of their way to make sure they don't pay their fair share? Michael Woodhouse should have been on his feet today saying, we won't stand for that. And we're finally going to listen to the advice that the National Party has been given time after time. Because the changes made in 2010 and 2011 by the National Party that made it tax-free for investment funds in New Zealand that are owned by foreigners, tax-free. Chapman Tripp said this puts us on a par with Luxembourg and the Cayman Islands. Now, John Key might be a bit disappointed about that because he wanted us to be Jersey of the South Pacific, an ultimate tax haven. It's actually gone bankrupt now, or Switzerland of the South Pacific, because that's all about where those people who are the mega-rich make their money. But National was warned. They were warned that their changes were going to make a big difference, and they have, nearly doubling the number of foreign trusts that we now have operating out of New Zealand. And they don't even want to look at that. They've set up a sham review rather than the full public inquiry that we need. Because, Mr Chair, New Zealanders need multinationals who operate here in New Zealand to pay their tax. We know that there are multinationals who are avoiding that. We're out there on the world stage saying we want that so that New Zealand working people only have to pay their fair share. But our credibility in going out to the world and saying we want multinationals to pay their fair share is undermined when we have a government that will not respond to the huge loopholes in our tax system. They were told in 2013 by the Inland Revenue Department, our foreign trust rules continue to attract criticism, including claims that New Zealand is now a tax haven in respect of trusts. To protect our international reputation, it may be necessary to strengthen our regulatory framework for disclosure and record keeping. If Michael Woodhouse wants to respect the officials from the IRD, listen to their advice. That's what they told Michael Woodhouse in 2013, and he ignored it. His cabinet colleagues, the Prime Minister, they all ignored it. And John Key is donkey deep in tax evasion. John Key deep in tax evasion. That's who he is. That's who his friends are. And that's who he stands up for. Well, New Zealanders deserve much better than that when it comes to their tax system. We need a fair tax system. We need a tax system that is simple and easy to understand, but fundamentally, we need a tax system that allows New Zealand to hold its head up high on the world stage, not a morally bankrupt government that thinks that those at the very top are those who deserve their support. We need a government that's for all New Zealanders, not the mega rich.
Mr. Chair. Chris